So I am going to go ahead and get us started by introducing our MLS Director, Cathy Faulkner.
Joining me on the webinar today is Derek Westley. Derek is our MLS Committee Chairman, and he and I are going to go through the Clear Cooperation Policy. And just a few words about Derek. Derek is a New Orleans, Louisiana native, and he came to the DFW area in 2006 and has been part of the RE/MAX family since 2000. Derek is currently a broker associate at RE/MAX Preferred in Cedar Hill. Derek's a smart guy. He's got a bachelor's degree in communications and a master's degree in business administration. And he contributes back to his profession by working with new agents to better their skills with working with homeowners to making sure that they raise the bar in professional standards. He served on several MetroTex committees, and Derek has served on the MetroTex Board of Directors in 2018 and 2019. He is currently serving on the Board of Directors for Texas Realtors and also serves on the Texas Realtors Risk Reduction Committee. So, Derek Westley, our MLS Committee Chairman, welcome.
Hello, Cathy. Hey, Cathy.
So, Derek, this has been an interesting year so far, right?
Yes, it has, and I'm sure it's gonna have we're gonna have more stories toward the end of the year, also with the new Clear Cooperation Policy.
Yes. Well, that and in the current situation with the COVID-19, and wow, what an interesting year to be MLS Committee Chairman. Lots of things changing.
It is. It keeps it interesting, that's for sure. It keeps it very interesting.
Well, we appreciate your leadership. Well, let's go through this Clear Cooperation Policy, and I'm sure there's lots of questions. I get tons of questions every day about it. So let's see if we can clear the air about Clear Cooperation.
Yeah, let's do that.
So, Clear Cooperation is a new policy statement which was mandated by the National Association of Realtors for adoption by local MLSs. NAR adopted this policy in November of 2019, and the actual policy is to address an issue that was typically started on the West Coast and the East Coast, but it has now creeped into most markets across the country, and that's where people are not putting their listings in the MLS. And some of the markets on the East Coast, on the West Coast, half of the listings that are sold are not being put into the MLS. And these are MLS participants who are just not putting their listings in, depriving the public and the buying public of the opportunity to see properties. The idea of cooperation is not new to the MLS, and it's not new to realtors. It's the actual primary purpose of the multiple listing service. And if you look at the definition of the MLS, it's a communications means between brokers or participants. In MLS terms, when we talk about participants, we mean brokers. And when we say subscribers, we mean the agents that are with the participants. And it's a communication tool, and it's a way for them to let people know what properties are available and to make unilateral offers of compensation and by which cooperation among participants is enhanced. And it's also a way for information to be accumulated and disseminated to enable authorized participants to prepare appraisals, analysis, and other valuations of real property for bona fide clients and customers. And that's a part of our MLS rules. It is the foundation of the multiple listing service since its inception. Brokers, when they participate in the MLS, they've agreed to contribute to a common database of available properties and sales data to provide the best information for their clients and customers. So what's the problem? The problem that's crept into our market, and Derek, you remember the dawning of these new things: pocket listings, coming soon, and office exclusive. And let me just say for the record that I believe a pocket listing and an office exclusive are the same thing. So as we go forward, just know that when I'm saying one or the other, I mean that these are listings where the seller has opted not to put their listing into the MLS. Now, in my mind, those are the same thing. Okay, so when we go forward, those are one and the same. The pocket listing doesn't contribute to the common database. There's limited exposure, which is usually not in the best interest of the client. It's also selective exposure to private groups and clients, which may raise questions of fair housing. And the question would be, is everyone being treated equally? The coming soon listing probably dawned, the actual history of the coming soon, if you look back, was actually probably precipitated by REO companies who wanted the agents who were listing their foreclosed properties to go ahead and put signs in the yard. The coming soon riders became popular in our stores back in 2008. It was our top seller and has been ever since. And that was not due to a sales strategy. It was due to the REO companies wanting that information on their signs. Okay. Now, coming soon though has morphed into what we now call pre-marketing for properties that are not ready to be shown. But the coming soon, we now have accommodated in the MLS, and it can be entered into the MLS to be used as a common database. But unfortunately, sometimes it's been being misused and provides selective exposure to a very few number of people. Again, I believe office exclusive and pocket listing are probably the same thing, but it can be used in a situation where your client wants privacy. Maybe that client is a celebrity, maybe they're law enforcement, maybe there's an illness in the family or disability, and they want to be able to have privacy and have a little bit of control of who's coming in and out their home. And that would qualify the listing where the seller has instructed you in writing to withhold the listing from the MLS. In a situation where you have an agreement with the seller for an office exclusive, then the only marketing that can occur for that is through the brokerage. And when I mean the brokerage, I mean the broker of the company and that office. Okay. Unfortunately, sometimes this is misused when the listing information is also publicly marketing and thereby negating the need for privacy. So this is where clear cooperation comes in. This levels the playing field and puts everybody on the same page. Here's the actual policy statement written by the National Association of Realtors, has now been adopted as part of the NTREIS rules as 7.01. Within 1 business day of marketing a property to the public, the listing broker must submit the listing to the MLS for cooperation with other MLS participants. Public marketing includes, but is not limited to, flyers in windows, yard signs, digital marketing on public-facing websites, brokerage website displays, including IDX and VOW, digital communications marketing, email blasts, multi-brokerage listing sharing networks, and applications available to the public. And again, this was adopted by NAR in November of 2019. So that's it, the actual statement in the policy. One thing I want to point out, this is about your marketing of a property. Okay, that triggers the clear cooperation policy in your requirement at that point to then put the listing into the MLS. Now, the property types that this applies to are listed below, and that includes residential single-family homes for sale, which includes condos, half duplexes, single-family, townhouse, farm and ranch. It also includes vacant, residential, and farm and ranch lots and acreage for sale, and multifamily dwellings up to and including 4-family residential buildings for sale. Now, I want you to notice what's not on this list. That's residential rental property. And it also does not mention commercial properties for lease or for sale. Those two property categories are not required for submission. Any other property type that falls within A, B, or C are required for submission unless that property is located outside of the NTREIS market area. So if you take a listing in Austin, Houston, Lubbock, San Antonio, those are not required for submission. Of course, we want you to put those in the MLS, but those are not required. But if it's within the service area of NTREIS, then those 3 property categories are, A, B, and C are required for submission. On this screen, you have a side-by-side comparison of the office exclusive and incoming listing in the coming soon and active. Let's talk about this because there's been some changes in the coming soon category that I want to highlight. And we've already talked about the office exclusive. One thing that these 3 categories don't provide is distribution to third-party portal sites like Realtor.com. Okay. Well, let's talk about coming soon. And I don't know where this came from, but somebody, I don't know, Derek, I don't know. We've talked about it. There's rumor that coming soon is dead. I don't know why. The coming soon status in our MLS has been expanded to help people comply with the clear cooperation policy. So I want to dispel that rumor. Coming soon is alive and well. By submitting your listing through the coming soon status to the MLS, then you've complied with clear cooperation. Only brokers within the MLS can see the listing, and they're also included in client emails. So, but no showings are permitted while it's in the coming soon status. You can market it all you want to. You can put a sign in the yard, Facebook posts, email blasts to your heart's content. Okay. The coming soon listings do not go to third-party sites. Oops. And of course, you need to have a listing agreement requiring that the seller desires for the delayed submission, which the Texas Realtors listing agreement accommodates that. The status for coming soon has been extended now from 14 days to 30 days. Okay. If you take no action in 30 days on the listing, the status will change to temporarily off market. And please know that no days on market are accumulated while the listing is in the coming soon status. Okay. And we've talked about the office exclusive. Again, that should be at the request of the seller, but you need to have a strong conversation with them to let them know that their exposure for the listing is going to be limited. That only people within your firm can see the property. You can only talk to buyer clients within your firm, etc. Office exclusives are not submitted to the MLS. And again, as we discussed, the seller needs to understand that their exposure to the open market is going to be limited. Like we discussed, the coming soon will be extended to 30 days in that status. No showings are permitted, so you got to remember that you cannot show the property while it's in the coming soon status. If you see a violation of the clear cooperation policy, you would send an email to the MLS department at mls@dfwre.com. The report needs to contain the full address of the property, listing agent and company name, and documentation with image of the marketing. So we would need a screenshot, a picture of the sign in the yard, etc. And I would ask too that you actually check the MLS before you submit these. We've already gotten several complaints filed, and a third of them, they're already in the MLS. So please check the MLS before you report any of these violations. Now, for the remainder of 2020, we'll be issuing warnings. We're in the process of education at this point. So we want our first step to be bringing this the policy to everyone's attention, issuing warnings that this is what you're doing here is not okay. You'll need to comply, and we give you 3 steps for compliance. Okay. However, if after that first warning another complaint's received, and this is for the rest of 2020, then there will be fines, or the fining process will begin. Beginning in 2021, there will be no warnings. Starting in 2021, the first offense will be a $1,000 fine. Second offense is $2,500 fine. Third offense is $5,000 fine. And if you do it a fourth time, then you're going to come to talk to the MLS committee. NAR has approved sanctions up to $15,000, and you could be suspended from the MLS. Okay. Again, fines will begin in 2021 with no warnings. For the remainder of this year, there'll be a warning first. Okay. For most of you, this is not going to be a change to your normal practice. You've always been putting your listings in. You're like, well, why are we even having this conversation? But for others, it will be a change. It'll be a change in thought process. So I know some of you, as soon as you leave your listing appointment, you're doing the selfie with your new listing and doing the Facebook post, and probably need to scale that back till you get rid and make sure, though, if you are doing that within 1 business day, you have your listing into the MLS. Clear cooperation policy aims to ensure that consumers have equal access to available properties through a transparent process which promotes fair housing, and it bolsters cooperation and advances the positive and pro-competitive impacts that cooperation fosters for consumers. So that, in a nutshell, my friends, is clear cooperation. So, Derek,
Okay. Yes.
what kind of impact do you think this policy is going to have on your personal real estate practice?
On my practice, probably very little, because what I normally do is when I take a listing, I normally have it on the market within the time specified of the listing agreement. If we're doing a make ready or getting it ready for the market, I'll definitely put it in coming soon. I think it's critical to point out that from my understanding that the clear cooperation starts when you start marketing the property. Am I
Yes.
correct with that? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So if you do the infamous selfie on Facebook today, then tomorrow I guess it needs to be in the system. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, so within one business day.
Okay. And what is a business day? Let's get clarified on that. What is a business day?
So one business day would be, so today is Thursday. So if I did the selfie thing or put the sign in the yard today, then I need to have my listing in the MLS tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. So if I did it on Friday, does it mean it needs to be in the system by Monday?
Yes, well, and this weekend is an exception because if you do it Friday, you need to have it into the MLS by Monday by Tuesday because MLS or Monday is a holiday. So that's not
Okay. So we mean business days, just like Monday through Friday, no holidays, governmental days, I should say.
Right.
Is that a better way to say it?
Exactly.
Okay, good, got it. Cathy, we actually had a few questions to come in.
Okay. Fire away. I'm ready.
So one says, will the coming soon status, will that still feed out to our clients? Like if we have it highlighted, if a new property comes on the market, I know you said it doesn't go to Zillow or Realtor.com, but if we have it highlighted as a search criteria for our client, will that still come up like that?
Yes,
For them?
They will show up in your property searches, and if you set up an auto email and send those to your client through the client portal, then yes, they will be able to see those, the coming soon status. Yes, sir.
Okay. Another question I had was that can the complaints on the violations be anonymous?
So, well, sort of. Initially,
Okay.
Initially we will send a warning out, and we'll say, here's the picture, or here's the screenshot of your Facebook post, and so forth. When we start levying fines, the person who receives the fine has the right to request a hearing. They may say, nope, I didn't do that. I'm innocent. I want a hearing. NAR says there has to be a complainant. If there's a hearing, there has to be a complainant. So at that point, then no, there wouldn't be. Anonymity is not an option.
Okay. So one question says they feel that the policy gives larger brokerages an advantage over smaller brokerages since they have a larger in-house network to market office exclusive listings. The question is, how can they compete?
So I've been getting that concern quite a bit. And so I talked this over with the broker the other day, and we had a really good conversation. And, I want to remind everybody you have access to a larger network, which is the multiple listing service. So even a large brokerage. So Derek, look, I know I'm putting you on the spot. We didn't practice this. If you had to say for your brokerage right now, how many buyer clients do you guys have? Just off the top of your head.
Probably about 90.
90.
About
okay.
90 buyer clients. Yeah.
So that would be it for your company. So if you would take even a large broker, so let's triple that, quadruple that buyer clients. However, if you put your listings on the multiple listing service, then you have major property available to every buyer that might be interested. And if you're limiting it to your brokerage, and this is a conversation you really need to have with your seller, okay? Sellers are sometimes convinced that they need, they don't want everybody going through their house. Well, they need to think about their motivation behind that decision. Because even in a large brokerage, the number of buyers is limited. And you also want to be careful that for the reasons that you want to limit the number of buyers that see that house, because you want to give it to the largest exposure of people, and the MLS is the best place to do that. Buyers come in all shapes and sizes, okay? You don't have a clue who might have the money. Even in the exclusive, upper end market, you have no idea, and you're making some assumptions if you think otherwise about who can afford to buy a luxury home, okay?
Mhm.
They don't all look the same.
No.
They don't all drive the same car. They don't all move in the same social circles that you do. And if they're coming from Texas to Texas from out of state, they don't know who a lot of the brokerages are. I live in a home where there's young adults and they're looking at houses. They don't know to go to brokerage websites. They don't even know who the brokers are. They just know if it's not on realtor.com or the other place, they don't know your listing exists. Okay.
Right, right.
And they're not going to go looking for it. It's too much work.
Well, then, and as realtors, we want to practice fair housing. We're supposed to. By law, we're supposed to.
Exactly. And you got to wonder, and onlookers, whether you meant to or not, onlookers to this process of withholding listings from the MLS might look as if you're withholding them for reasons that are excluding them, because maybe they don't look like you and they don't look like your clients, and so there could be whether you wanted to or not, a disparate impact where you were discriminating and you didn't know it, or because discrimination is it's in the eyes of the beholder, right?
Right, right.
So
based on what I intended, it's how it's received.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's where people need to be very careful about a seller's motivation to keep the listing off of MLS and to really have that strong discussion. And don't they want the best price that they can get? So
right. Well, maximum exposure is key.
Yeah.
Especially when the basic market is supply and demand. So the more people know about it, the better chance we have getting that dollar amount, the optimum dollar amount for the seller.
Right.
All right. I have another question. This is going to be fun.
Okay.
Can I show my listing while it is in the coming soon status?
No, you may not.
Why not? Why?
Because the assumption is it's not ready for anybody to see. Okay.
Okay.
So there should be a reason. You shouldn't be doing coming soon to keep people out. Okay. And to sort through and pick and choose. You should be doing coming soon because there's construction going on in the house. They need to stage it. They need to take pictures. In other words, you're saying, I'm getting it ready. But until then, you shouldn't see it, okay? Because it's not ready. Because if you're ready to show it, then it's not coming soon. It's arrived. It's here.
So everybody should be able to see it then at that point.
And again,
that's when you change the status to active, correct?
Right. It gets a question of access too. I had one broker a few years ago say, yeah, but if they call me, I let them see it. And I'm like, well, that's not fair to everybody else that was following the rules and waiting for you to make it active.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another perception issue.
I agree. Piggybacking on that, let's say I allow my listing to be shown during coming soon status. Mm-hmm. Will I be fined?
Well, if a complaint is filed, then that would go to the MLS committee, and then you'd have to probably come in and have a discussion with the MLS committee and clarify why you did that.
Okay. All right. Okay. This person says they have a sign in the yard with the coming soon rider. The seller is painting and replacing carpet. And like you said, they need to stage the property and take pictures. What should they do to be in compliance with the new policy?
You can put the listing into the coming soon status. You've complied. And then you can market it as well. You can do all your Facebook posts and give it to your secret groups and all that stuff.
Okay. So are any listings grandfathered in or exempt since this policy is new?
No. If your listing is in the MLS now, it needs to be, if you have a listing agreement in place now, it needs to be in compliance now. We've had that come up. Well, I took my listing on April 30th. Well, it's May, whatever are we, it's 21st. You gotta be in compliance today. It doesn't matter when you took the listing agreement.
Doesn't matter. Okay. All right, let's see. Well, I think you kind of covered everything. I
Okay,
don't see any other questions coming in right now.
let's see.
So basically,
I see some questions on my end. Let's see.
okay.
Let's see. I have a question about what about a listing that's in probate waiting to clear? I would say, well, if it's in probate, then we don't know who the owner is yet. So who's your listing agreement with, right? And correct me if I'm wrong about that, Derek. If it's in probate, you don't know who the owner is yet.
No, unless there's an executor that's been assigned. That's the only difference,
I'm
but if it's
I'm,
in probate,
I'm thinking that would just
yeah,
be
it's not supposed to be on the market.
yeah. I'd just say that hold that out until you get that cleared up. That's because you wouldn't want to bring a buyer into that mix. So
No, don't even put it in coming soon status.
right. Can you market but not show interior pictures? Yeah, I mean your marketing does not require photography of any sort. So at this point, especially if it's in the coming soon status, you don't have to show any photography. Let's see. So can you talk about if a homeowner posts a picture, does any marketing on their own? Yes, this is a good question. Then we have to have the home in MLS in one day. If we have a few things we're still working on before it's going live, that's why we're not putting in MLS. How does that affect the agent? So the new listing agreement or the revised listing agreement from Texas Realtors addresses that issue and puts the seller on notice that, okay, you've agreed to delay or withhold the listing from the MLS. That means you, seller, may not market the property either. And if you do, then that subjects your agents to the clear cooperation policy and they'll have to put it in. Now, if you do that in this situation, you probably use the coming soon status and then you can market and you're fine. You can finish up your work that needs to be done. But the seller needs to be clear on what they can and can't do either.
Okay. Because even if they do it, Cathy, right, it'll still trigger that one business day rule, correct?
You got it. You got it.
Okay.
There's some questions about phone calls. So here's if you've got an office exclusive and an agent calls you and says, I have a buyer that's looking for such and such and such and such. You did not market the property at that point. That is a buyer's agent calling you looking for listings. Okay. That's not marketing. So you have not violated the clear cooperation policy. If you, though, are the listing agent and you've got an office exclusive and you're making calls, then that's marketing. And then that would trigger the clear cooperation policy and you would need to put the listing in the MLS. Clear as mud?
Yeah, clearly.
Oh, yes. Now, I've got a question about days on market, my favorite subject. So with the coming soon status, days on market are not accumulated while it's in that status. Okay. Neither are cumulative days on market until it goes active.
Okay.
Now, once it goes active, then the days on market start accumulating. As far as cumulative days on market, if it has not been 31 days since that listing, if there was a previous listing of that same property, if it has not been 31 days, then it could pick up the CDOM or the cumulative days on market from the previous listing, even though it's been in the coming soon status for long enough to have cleared that 31 days. So you just need to be very careful counting your days on the CDOM. But for days on market, every listing starts fresh, and when it's put in the MLS, if it's been in the coming soon status, days on market don't count until it's made active.
Cathy, let me ask you something. If it's been in the coming soon status more than 30 days, what happens to the listing? Does it stay there? Does it go into temporary off market or something like that?
It moves to temporary off market status once it hits day 30.
Okay.
And it'll stay there until you make it active or it expires, one of the two.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see what other questions we have online here, Derek. Let's see. What if you have a property that's tenant occupied and we're trying to market the property for next month? Well, let's see. So if you're marketing it for sales and it's tenant occupied, you could do the coming soon status and market and not show. That way that would probably make the tenants happy. If you're marketing it for rental property, you don't have to put it in the MLS. Rental properties are excluded from the clear cooperation policy. Okay. Let's see what else here. So, okay. Recently had a listing agreement signed on a property. The next door neighbor met me and the seller was leaving with an offer. No sign in the yard at all. Agreement minutes old. How do I handle that in the future? So listening, the next door neighbor met me and the seller as I was leaving with an offer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, sometimes right now they're selling that quickly. So
Yeah, and the rules state that you're supposed to get the offer to the seller as soon as possible. So even though nobody's seen it, and like you said, some people are buying things sight unseen.
right.
They need to get it to the owner as soon as possible. Let the owner decide what they want to do with the offer. If they want to entertain the offer, or do they want to just go ahead and start showing the property since it's technically on the market.
But I would be careful having any conversation with the neighbor. That's your business with the seller is kind of confidential. So I wouldn't have I'd be careful having a conversation with the neighbor. Okay. Let's see. Want to know what if the seller needs more than 30 days for the renovations. I would just leave it in the TOM status. Take down your sign. Don't market it. Once it's TOM, it's not active anymore. I would just stop marketing it. I know that's not it's not easy to do to take signs down, especially some of these big pole signs. That takes a company and that takes money. So hopefully you got a plan in place, get all that done quickly so it can go on the market.
Cathy,
Mm-hmm.
are builders exempt from the coming soon status?
They are not. So that's a question that's come up because in the NAR Q&A, the questions and answers that the National Association has on their website, there was discussion about some of the rationale. And one of the comments was that this was not intended for new home developments, and people aren't seeing the word development. So we know a lot of realtors who work with developers to market the entire the whole thing. They're not marketing one piece of property, one lot, one house, or one house at a time. They're marketing the entire subdivision. They may be even working with the city to help promote that subdivision or that development to REO companies and relocation companies and things like that. So we know that kind of activity is going on. But then once you start looking at individual build jobs, lots that are being offered for build to suit, things like that, then those are not exempt. And I know there's a little bit of there's some discussion about that, but at this point, those listings are not exempt just because they're in a construction status that's not pre-owned. They need to go ahead and, if they're marketing those properties, they need to be putting them into the MLS.
Wow.
I have a question about the coming soon for rental. Yes, you can use coming soon for rental property. That's fine. It's just rental properties are not subject to the clear cooperation policy. Okay. So is there any plan for clear cooperation to apply to rental properties? Many brokerages are listing on their websites and not in MLS, which makes it hard for CMAs. The reason rental properties were left out was because right now they're popular again, they come and go, but they turn over in some cases so quickly they haven't had a chance. They have tenants lined up waiting for properties, and so they don't have a chance to put them in the MLS. And so the property owners typically and the landlords typically know what they want for rent, so it's not quite as competitive a different type of competitive environment as the for sale listings. So they typically don't have a chance to get them into the MLS. A question, let's see, here's one. What if you have a property that's wrong one. Let's see, a listing goes to the TOM but has marketing during that time. Some marketing is arranged several weeks in advance, but an unforeseen circumstance with the seller may arise that require a TOM during that time is set to be distributed. So I guess that would depend on why is it TOM. Okay, did the pipes burst? Is the seller ill? You know, why is this listing in a TOM status? And so, yeah, I would say, you know, if it's TOM is that just that it should be temporarily off the market. So I know in a situation like that, I think we'd want to take those circumstances into consideration because again, taking a sign down could cost a lot of money. Stopping some of those marketing campaigns that you've already started when it's the intent of the sellers to put it back on the market. I would say I think we just need to be considerate and we would need to ask questions before we do anything automatic with those. I think again that's one of those situations. Let's find out what's the issue, what's going on. Okay. Okay. Question, I work primarily with relocation clients that may only have a few days in town. So what if I know about a property coming to the market? It seems unfair that they cannot see. As a relocation client, myself before becoming a realtor, this would have been a disadvantage to be limited to only the homes for sale as my agent often showed me homes not on the market. So Derek, I think this is the whole reason for the clear cooperation policy. So why was that listing not in the MLS if they were letting you see it?
Probably because they think they had a buyer or a buyer or somebody within the company in-house sale.
Right.
That's the only thing I can think of. Yeah.
So, I mean, I would say that is one of the reasons that the clear cooperation policy is in place. You shouldn't have to worry about being able to show your client's property. If they put it in a coming soon and knowing that you can't see it, that's like she said, that's not fair. And you have to figure out why did they put it in the coming soon status and were allowing showings at the same time. But that meant not everybody had access to the property. Yeah, like one person is saying that the house is either on the market or it's not. Agreed. Pretty simple, right?
Yep.
Pretty simple. Okay. There's going to be a system for 2021 which we can inform MLS prior to any situation such as a TOM property that is being marketed. Well, I guess you could. Again, these are all precipitated on is somebody going to file a complaint. Believe it or not, the MLS department staff is not going to get in our cars and we're not going to patrol. And so these have to be sent in to us in writing. And so, you know, if there's a situation where you get a fine, you know, there's a process in place already where you can appeal the fine. And so we would go through that process during that time. Okay. So would the person showing the property also get a fine? Well, probably not. Again, that showing that would have to be a determination by the MLS committee. There's nothing automatic. There's no automatic fines for showing a property in this coming soon status. And so, yeah, and so this is really only sell from peer regulated in. Yes, just like any other issues that we have, whether it's the clear cooperation, a violation of the code of ethics, any of those things, those are typically peer regulated and reported. And there's not ways for MLS staff typically to know of a violation, especially of this nature. We're not out in the fields with you guys. We don't get that. We do get some of those emails actually that say not in the MLS. I'm looking at those a little closer. But I don't, I'm not part of the secret Facebook groups, although FYI, I'm getting screenshots and complaints filed because of your postings in the little secret Facebook groups, by the way. So just keep that in mind. There's no secret and there's no private Facebook groups. I'm getting emails from all sorts of private Facebook groups.
Right. And Cathy, if somebody enters that coming soon without permission, then they can still file a complaint, that agent, right?
Yes, for
Okay.
sure. For sure. Well, Derek, do you have any other questions or comments or thoughts on the clear cooperation policy?
No, from the brokers that I've talked to in our area, everybody seems to like it. One broker said he thought that's what we were supposed to be doing anyway, even before the policy came out.
Right.
So I think it's, market conditions are kind of dictating how people are practicing. Some people think they may have the advantage for the pocket listings or the exclusive because of the marketplace that they're in. But we not only have a duty to our clients, we also have a duty to the public to treat everybody fairly. So from that perspective, I think, the clear cooperation policy is going to be a good tool. And I think it's just a matter of educating the agents, and then as agents, we can educate the consumers, both buyers and sellers, because, nobody wants to be in a lawsuit or discriminating against anybody. Sellers just want the optimum dollar for their property, and buyers just want a nice house.
Right.
So we, and if we practice like that, I think everything will be fine. But yeah, I think it's long overdue, to a certain degree, because if we're not reporting all our sales, and if only a certain group, quote unquote, has the sellable listings, what does that do for everybody else?
Right.
Because if we're trying to get the top dollar for our seller, I still believe maximum exposure to the market is the way to do that.
Okay. Well, the questions I see coming in are pretty much ones that we've already answered. So
Okay.
I'd like to wrap it up. Roxy, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Cathy. Thanks. And everybody, you're getting lots of thank yous on the chat. Derek and Cathy, this has been very informative, and we really appreciate y'all taking your time today to explain this, because there have been many questions.